Welcome to episode 2 of Talking Prisoner Presents. Today we've got another amazing guest with us. You can't get any more original than this guy here, David Clencie. He appeared in 155 episodes of Neighbours, including the very first episode when it was on Channel 7. He's also appeared in A Country Practice, The Sullivans, I Can Jump Puddles, Starting Out, Stingers, Blue Healers, and he's also a very passionate Richmond supporter. We're, of course, talking about David, who played Danny Ramsay in Neighbours. Welcome to Talking Prisoner.
Thanks, Matt.
Good morning, Ken.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. And
yeah, thanks for having me over as well.
That's
first outside one we're doing.
An OB, an outside broadcast. Yes. We're live.
Yes. Now, before we get on to Neighbours, can we learn about your life growing up as a child? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in predominantly East Malvern, leafy suburb of East Malvern. Went to a private school. I went to 2 or 3 schools before high school. And yeah, it was a pretty normal sort of upbringing, I guess. I did go to boarding school as a day boarder, which was interesting because my parents couldn't get me into this school unless I was a boarder. So I came in that way. So, yeah, so, you know, I used to ride bikes and climb trees and annoy people. And, you know, I was just a pretty normal kid, loved sport, hated school, I hated academia, the academia world. I think most actors can't do maths, which is why they don't get paid royalties.
Most cameramen too.
Yeah, we're not great on the old the bean counting, but you know, anything that was a bludge, anything that was a slack, as we used to call it, I was into it. So
yep,
yeah, naughty boy, I guess. I haven't changed.
You got any special memories from that time?
Yeah, I mean, I was always kind of juggling things because I started acting so young. I think about 13, and I was also in the Victorian Junior Symphony Orchestra. I was a percussionist. And I used to play, you know, me, but I used to play a pretty good game of footy. So, of course, school wanted me on a Saturday for footy, and the orchestra, that was when we rehearsed. And then I had my acting commitments. So it was always kind of a bit of, well, what am I going to, you know, where am I going to, you know, cast my attention? So, and it was difficult, I guess, trying to stay the age that I was, because in the acting world, I was, you know, working with older people. And so I grew up quite quickly. And, yeah, so it was always, I mean, they were all extraordinary things, I guess, particularly the orchestra. And I was the youngest in that orchestra. It was a training orchestra for the Melbourne Symphony. And I was a percussionist. And I remember falling asleep in Tchaikovsky's Ninth. And my job was to kind of hit the cymbals at the crescendo at the end. And it went for so long. And it was at the Robert Blackwood Hall in Monash, at Monash University. And there was a lot of people there. And I just nodded off and completely forgotten. The poor conductor, Mr. Lindsay Wright, I remember he was like, and the timpanist, and I was, you know, 13 years of age, 14 years of age. But the timpanist came across and shook me, and I went, what? And I said, oh, now. And I grabbed the cymbals and almost, you know, clanged them into my head, like bang. And the looks and the lecture I got after it was, I was lucky to survive. But yeah, so I mean, I always had fun, whatever I was doing, whether it was on purpose or not. So.
What was one of your favourite subjects at school? You hated maths, which everyone does, but favourite.
Probably writing out the school rules after on a Saturday, on a Friday detention. That was the best, because I didn't have to think. I could just, you know, just do it. But then I got caught my. Look, probably English, I'd say. Latin was an interesting one, and we did French as well. I quite enjoyed that, but nothing that was too hard. Too hard. Yeah.
Can you tell us what your parents did for a living?
Yeah, my father owned his own advertising agency, quite a big one, with a big retail client base. You know, he did Safeway, Woolworths advertising for 20 years, and Brashes and
Brashes.
Yep, right on Mr. B.
Tony
and,
Barber,
and King Billy Guides, and so he was he was sort of moving and shaking, I guess, in the 70s. My mother is from Adelaide, and she's the salt of the earth, and she was really a homemaker, I guess, in those days. My sister, she's 8 years younger than me, Jane. And what was the question again?
about your parents, what they were up to.
Yes. So that's who they were, and different times. I was just saying to my mother before that
your mother's lovely. Just I'll mention that. I met your mum.
She's beautiful.
Yeah.
We're just talking about smoking in the 80s, and you know, because she's a reformed smoker, and they're the worst. And she was. I can remember her driving me to school in the Datsun 180Z.
Oh, the Datsun.
The big long nose on it, and she'd be smoking these trench cigarettes, and I'd be like, you know, Mum, can you wind the window down? And she said, no, it's winter. I'm not winding the window down. It was like, it was just so wrong in those days. But
my mum was the same. It was unbelievable.
Oh, she was a chain smoker.
Choking, and you feel nauseous. You're on the way to school, and then it's like a chimney in the
absolutely
in the car.
We used to go to Noosa for school holidays, and as soon as the plane would take off, the light would go on. Oh, bang! They'd all be lighting up. But my father never smokes, but unfortunately he didn't live that long, so there might be something in smoking.
Yeah.
Or
keep smoking. Keep smoking and drinking.
Don't smoke. No, don't smoke.
What did your parents think when you wanted to be an actor, when you told them?
Mum was quite supportive. My father was very strict and very old school. And because he dealt with actors, you know, making TV commercials, he thought they were all imbeciles and, you know, get a real job sort of thing. So, you know, I'd come in with a C+ at school, and he'd be like, oh, why didn't you get an A? Why didn't you get an A? So he was like, what do you want to do that for? You know, bloody imbeciles. He said, they're good for nothings. So he wasn't impressed at all. But I think later in life, he was secretly proud, but, you know, he certainly didn't show it at the time. He was quite, because he was paying a lot of money for my education, and I was just, you know, thumbing my nose at it. So, do
you actually have any hobbies, and what sort of things do you do in your spare time, if you've got spare time?
Now?
Yes.
Oh, now, yeah. I guess the Richmond Footy Club takes up a fair bit of my time. We've got about 15,000 followers. We've got an organisation, if you like, called the Richmond Tigers of Old, and it's predominantly on social media. We have a group and we have pages, and I do, like yourselves, interviews with past players, famous players, and we do quizzes, and we do, so we're kind of like because Richmond have the Richmond Football Club, for you English people, is an Australian rules club, one of the best and the biggest, of course, yellow and black, and so that takes up a fair bit of my time. Other than that, I like to read. I like to garden, do gardening, and I don't know. And my son takes up a fair bit of time too. So I find it quite. There's not enough hours in the day, really, and I'm working as well. So, but hobby-wise, I'm not into philately or you know, collecting moths or butterflies or anything like that. That's not really my go. But
now, just speaking on Richmond, so they won the grand final 1980, and then it was 2017, 19 and 20. So did you go to those grand finals?
Oh yeah,
you did.
Yeah.
A big gap between the
37 years. 37 years.
Same with the length of neighbours.
Yeah, well, I never thought I'd see another premiership, to be honest. So it's been a bonus.
Yeah.
And you know, they've done very well.
Yeah, they have.
How's life been for you during the pandemic and the lockdowns?
What lockdown? Oh, the one we had, yes.
Oh, that lockdown.
I've forgotten about it now. Trying to block it out. Yeah, look, it was really tough. You know, I live by myself, so you know, it was quite lonely and frustrating, and I started to really, my mental health started to deteriorate, I think, and it was just you know, that when we had the 8 o'clock curfews.
Oh, the curfew.
It was tough. Didn't enjoy it at all. And now I'm wondering why we had it at all. I mean, we're opening up and there's 7,000 cases a day. It's just, my son...
10,000 yesterday.
Was there? Yeah. Well, my son was doing VCE and he in 2019, he copped that first year.
The first year.
So I really was kind of worried for him during that time, because it was really upsetting for the VCE and the preppies. I think was probably the worst affected. You know, your first year at school and your last year at school. And, you know, just the countdown clock and the formal and the, you know, and being the biggest and best in the school, and the workload is so big, you know, and he was virtually teaching himself. So I mean, he was fine. He was like, yeah, I'm doing this. Yeah, it's okay. But I was, you know, freaking out basically. Yeah. So, and I think a lot of parents were, like, because we didn't know how to cope or what to do. So it was really tough. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Now, you're also a voiceover artist. What's that like compared to acting?
It's good because you don't get my ugly face. It's great. I can just hide. And but yeah, I think I've got they come and go. I mean, you certainly couldn't feed 3 children and send them to private school on voiceover wages, but it's a good thing to be able to do, and they use actors, obviously. I mean, if I had $1 for every one that said, "Oh, I've got a great voice," you know, use me. Oh, I can do it. But that's not really where they're at. They need people to interpret the script, and I've sort of. It's like I get all the problem acting, like I did the gambling ad,
the gambling,
the TAC, the smoking ad. So it's like, oh, we've got a really bad problem here. Call Clencie. Yes, you know. So, but yeah, no, it ticks along. But yeah, it's good.
What's the smoking one they do?
I'm going to do a little demonstration, and I want you to do it with me. Right? Take a deep breath, as deep as you can. It's the emphysema. Emphysema. Yeah, so that was good.
Not making fun of emphysema.
No, but they all work. For some, and anti-gambling, I did the first with Lisa Grundy, who was on Neighbours and
Prisoner
on the Sullivans. Yeah, she was on Prisoner. Yeah. She played my wife, Shelley, and I did the voiceover for that as well as acting. You know? Okay. So yeah, anything with a problem, I'm here. I'm here.
He'll fix your problem.
I'll fix the problem. No problem too small.
Do you actually cook? And if so, do you have a signature dish? And what's your favourite food?
Oh, without a doubt, thick cut porterhouse, medium rare, salad and chips, and French mustard.
It's about lunchtime now.
Beautiful. Yeah, I could eat that every night. Or those loin chops, or the cutlets. Yeah. So I'm obviously a carnivore. But yeah, that's about it really. I had Wheat Bix this morning. That was pretty good. I poured the milk. Yeah, I put sugar on it, and you can't do that these days, according to my sister. So you put sugar on it? I was like, yeah, it tastes better. Yeah. So she, what about a banana? I said,
too healthy.
Bugger the banana. Yeah. Too healthy. Exactly. But yeah, no, look, I'm a plain cook, and it's all in the timing, I believe. But I'm certainly no Jamie Oliver. But yeah, I
can cook.
I can cook.
Favorite TV show? You got one?
Now?
Yeah.
Oh, look, I really like series like Rectify with Aidan Young and The Wire, Breaking Bad. I enjoy
Breaking Bad.
Those type of shows that were probably a couple of years older now, but I like those shows.
Good shows.
Yeah.
In 1981, you played Joey Baxter in the Australian TV drama Cop Shop. for 2 episodes. Do you have any memories of your time on Cop Shop?
I do, because it was the first time I'd worked for Crawford's, Crawford Productions, and Bunny Brooke played my mother, and she was a wonderful actress, and I think she was the casting director at the time, Crawford's as well. And it was a bit like we were actually did a bit of an Animal Kingdom before Animal Kingdom was Animal Kingdom, because I played the youngest crook.
Yep.
And David Downer and David Bradshaw, who does a lot of voiceovers, he's got a huskier voice than I have. They were my brothers, and they were kind of getting my character, or leading him astray. But it was a great experience, and because of that, I was cast in the Sullivans. So it was great working with such experienced, talented people. Yeah, it was a good storyline.
Yeah, great show.
Yeah.
Now, all actors have got different techniques learning their lines. What was yours?
I was pretty good. Like when I was younger, I was a bit like a sponge. I would have a read of it, and then I'd read it in rehearsals. And because the scenes probably aren't like they are today, they were fairly short. And so you'd I would photographically conceptualize where I spoke, and that just kind of happened automatically, and I knew it. So I was very lucky. A lot of other actors will really stress over it and learn, but I never did any homework, or I would virtually read it in rehearsal, and I knew it. So that's changed now. I mean, God, I can't remember my name these days. Let alone, I was very lucky as far as lines go.
Can you tell us about your time on Starting Out, which is another Reg Watson show that was created as a replacement for the Young Doctors, set in a medical college, and you played the cast member Ben.
Yep, and I was Maury Fields, offsider. So Maury for the rabbits, and it was a good little show, and I think I've got the title of being in the longest and the shortest running series of Australia. Starting Out lasted about 4 months, and because Neighbours was 37 years. But look, it was a great little show. Peter O'Brien was in it. That's where I met Peter, and Gary Sweet was in the first episode, I think, and there were some great older actors like Maury Fields and Murray Redshaw, Simon Childers' wife, who, and it was a good cast. But it was doomed, and Sue Masters was the producer, and it was, of course, done by Reg Watson. So it was, and it was the first time I'd worked for Grundy's too. So I sort of looked down on it because I was a Crawford's actor, and we were a bit snobby in those days. But but it was a good experience, but it wasn't long enough.
So just on the Crawford thing, so was there a real divide back then of Grundy's and Crawford? Because I've heard it from a lot of, like, since doing this podcast, especially talking to Ian Bradley, and he said there was a whole Crawfords and Grundy's.
I think there was. I think there definitely was, because Crawfords were kind of known as doing quality stuff, and Grundy's were kind of a bit more soapy, splurted out sort of thing. But and I think certainly, although so many people came across to Grundy's because the work was there, but actors and crew, directors, and but there was definitely a pecking order. And I think we were a bit snobby. And Crawfords were great because they'd kind of own their talent. They would keep recasting you in different shows, and they try and own you. So I think they got a bit nuffed when you went somewhere else. So they were very loyal.
Because you did Crawford's as well, Ken, didn't you? And Grundy's, right?
I worked both. Well, Homicide, Consider Your Verdict, Showcase,
Ramsay.
Sorry?
Young Ramsay?
No. I don't know where that was shot, but I didn't work on that one. And The Box, I worked on that as well.
So I thought that was that Crawford's, or was it this? Oh, it was.
Yeah, I think so.
Number 96 was Grundy's, was it?
But that was shot in Sydney.
Right. Yeah.
Now the Sullivans, 1982. You
Hmm.
played Steve Sullivan. What was that like? How'd you get on the Sullivans?
Oh, look, it was well, I got on it through this cop shop. And I was lucky enough to not have to audition, which was great because I'm
like
a terrible
auditions?
auditioner. Yeah. Look, that was amazing because I was wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, and I was 16 years of age, and you know, walking in there and you know, seeing the likes of Paul Cronin and Norman Yem, Reg Gorman, you know, Vivian Gray, Mrs. Jessup, and Andy Anderson, Megan. They were all Stephen Tandy. They were all superstars to me. And Gary Sweet, he was in it at the time, and they were, and because I was a big fan of the show, and Mum and I used to watch it at 7 o'clock and religiously. And when I was going to be on it, and sort of George Miller directed my first episode, and it was at Abbotsford. You might remember, Ken.
Yes.
It was out there, and John Wilde, who produced Stingers, he was driving the bus. And my first day was at Mount Disappointment, which was about an hour out of Melbourne. And it was just an amazing experience. Like, I got to work with so many good people. I've been very lucky that way with Dinah Shearing, who's was in the radio series, Dr. Paul. You know, she was from Sydney. She played my mother. And I was, even though I'd done a fair bit of television, I was still inexperienced, and they really taught me how to hit my mark and how to act for TV, I guess. So it was just and the production, the values were so good. You know, the period stuff, they went to so much trouble, and
really looked it.
It looked the part, and it was just it was a great. Even though the show was starting to wane in popularity when I arrived, it was still, you know, very professional, and a great grounding for anybody that was, and so many good actors have been through it. Like,
I think Kylie Minogue got an episode on Sullivans.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And also Damon Herriman, who's doing very well now in Hollywood, and I'm pretty sure Ben Mendelsohn has done.
Sullivans,
and the directors, you know, Rod Hardy, who's he's in Hollywood, and Dean Semler, you know, David Connell, the cinematographer. I mean, they all started at Crawford, so they all worked on the Sullivans. And a lot of people cut their teeth on it, so it was an honour really to be cast, except for the Christmas party. We had I must tell you about the Christmas party. There was a band, and Chris Langman, who used to play in Paul Kelly and the Dots, decided that, you know, they'd have a band at the Christmas party, and Hector Crawford was there, and Ian Crawford, and I decided that I'd do a rendition of Anarchy in the UK by the Sex Pistols. Right. I'm very, very lucky that I lasted as long as I did, because it was just a fun band for you know, and there were some talented people, really talented singers, and then there was me coming out like, you know, there's no point in asking you, just ridiculous. I mean, that's how much front I had, more front than Myers. But yeah, it was enjoyable. But I was very young, and I was working with older people, and you know, it kind of dragged me up into their world, and so I kind of lived before my time, really. So, which I don't know is a good thing or a bad thing, but yeah, no, it was a very good production. I was very honoured.
Great show. Great show.
Very lucky.
Now, let's get to Australia's longest running TV drama, Neighbours. Now, this is, I'm going to go on for a bit here. You appeared in 155 episodes as Danny Ramsay.
I think it's 176, but anyway, who's counting?
Well, no, I mean, you would know. So,
well, I wouldn't.
We're just going off IMDb.
I think it's 170.
Okay.
But
176, Ken.
Anyway, you appeared in 176 episodes as Danny Ramsay.
I couldn't count.
The math.
Now, if we can give a little bit of history on Neighbours for the fans. Neighbours first aired on Channel 7 after I'd left on the 18th of March 1985, and then it was axed, and Channel 10 picked it up and it aired on the 20th of January 1986. in 2005, it won the Logie Hall of Fame and has run for over 8,751 episodes to date. How did you get the role of Danny Ramsay, and did you have to audition for it? And what are your memories of the audition if that happened?
Good question. Good question. Look, I at the time decided that I was going to go and do something real. I was well after the Sullivans. I'd done a play, The Kid, directed by Rodney Fisher and written by Michael Gowan, and that had toured at St Martin's and Playbox Theatre. And I'd just been doing bits and pieces starting out, I think. And I decided that I'd go and do something different. And well, I didn't really know anything other than television. So I applied for a job at Crawford Productions in the art department. And so I thought I'd go on the other side of the camera and, become the next Steven Spielberg, and I got the job. And I was quite chuffed. I knew it'd be hard work compared to what I'd experienced because, but yeah, I'd worked as an art department runner on the Dunera Boys, Bob Weiss's production there with, what's the actor's name? I can't think. The shorty guy, like he was in Get Shorty, I think. English, Bob Hoskins. Bob Hoskins. Yeah. So and John Million, and so I'd been an art department runner. Anyway, cut a long story short, what were we talking about again? Neighbours. That's right. Sorry. So I had the job, and then my agent called and said, "Look, do you want to do an audition for a new series, Grundy's?" I said, "No, I don't." I said, I'm going to be Steven Spielberg. I mean, I've got one for that. And he was quite clever. He kind of dropped the seed and said, well, go. They've asked for you, so go. You probably won't get it, so just go and do it. And I said, oh yeah, okay. So I got there, and Jan Russ was there, and the casting director, famous casting director now, and John Holmes, the original producer. And I read the part of Danny. Just how I'd do it. It was just a typical audition. They had a bit of a chat to me. Mark Joff was there, who I'd worked with in the Sullivans, who directed the first episode, first week. And that was it. And I didn't sort of think much of it. And then, of course, 4 days later, Gary rang and said, you've got a decision to make. They want you to play the part. And so then I was in a conundrum. I didn't, it kind of... I was cursing my agent because he was clever the way he even got me there, because I was seriously wanting to do something else. And so I guess he said, look, sleep on it. And I said, yeah, okay. And yeah, that'll be okay. 10 minutes later, no, I didn't. So, and then I guess, to be honest, it appealed to my ego, I think. And just that camaraderie and excitement of TV, as you would know, Ken. So I said yes, and I'm glad I did, because it was we had no idea at the time how big the show would become. It was our baby. It was well written. It was funny. It worked with some great actors. It was very well cast. The original cast worked really well together. That's how I... Do
you think life would have gone a different path if you didn't get the part and worked behind the cameras?
Possibly, yeah. I might have had a better work ethic, I think, because, I'd never worked in a job where I actually had to arrive at 9 and finish at 5, or arrive at 10, finish at 6. It had always been in spurts, so I had no real concept of reality. So I think it would have been different, but we had a lot of fun on Neighbours. Francis Bell and changing the scripts. And
I want to talk about shortly, but just going back a second. So your character, Danny, was the first character to say the first word, no, having a bad nightmare, and was one of the original characters conceived by Reg Watson, who's created Prisoner. So what was it like working with Reg?
I think I was Reg's illegitimate love child. I think Danny was his fantasy. Really, that's a bit much, but maybe. Danny never had any love interests, or he was a strange little character. Like he was quite odd, and I didn't have much to do with Reg. I think, he was from Sydney, but when he came down, you knew he was the boss, and I was quite I'd sort of shake when I had to shake his hand because he was very well known and obviously very clever and an absolute pioneer. And it was I was very honoured to work with him twice. But he would, when you worked with him, because he was the executive producer, creator, it was from afar. He didn't have much to do with, your character should be this. I'm sure it came down the line, and you could kind of tell when Reg was talking, when the directors would tell you something, you'd think, oh, that sounds like Reg Watson. But I met him probably 3 or 4 times socially, and I would say hello to him when he came down in the studio. But he was kind of an enigma, I guess.
I find that interesting about Reg Watson because he created so many shows and so many big shows, and he was sort of really never involved in them.
No, he wasn't. I'm sure he was sort of pulling the strings, but because you don't. I mean, the conceptualization of Neighbours was just incredible, and he certainly knew what he was doing, and he was certainly shaping it from behind, I think. And had the final say, obviously, on casting and anything else. Yeah.
What did you actually know about the episodes and story arc over those episodes you were in before accepting the part? Did you know anything much?
All I knew was that I was playing. That it was a show set in a suburban street. It was about 3 families, and I was auditioning for the youngest in one of the families. I didn't know anything about Ramsay or Ramsay Street or anything like that. I just that's all I knew. Yeah. So I was always playing the youngest for some reason.
Yeah. Well, you were 20 at the time, and you were playing a teenager. What was that like?
Well, that's why we spoke like that, and it was interesting because both Darius Perkins, bless his heart, and I were both 20, playing 16-year-olds. And it was interesting getting into a school uniform and just getting into that mindset because, we were like going to nightclubs and we were big boys and, doing bad things and playing a much younger, more naive characters. So we had a few laughs, but and it wasn't. I mean, I guess I was kind of a bit immature anyway, and so we didn't really think that much of it, other than the fact that we had to wear school uniforms, and some of our lines were pretty daggy. But it was
interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, and we still young, obviously.
Yeah, so
we did. No, that was a wig. That was a wig.
All right.
And it's funny. They actually shaved my chest.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, for the nightmare scene where I'm running up the street going, Shane. Well, I just had a little bit of bum fluff, really. Yeah. And the hair and makeup, Doug and Brad had much pleasure in he wouldn't have any chest hair, and of course now I'm like a gorilla, so I should sue them. So it came back, but there was that. But we were pretty mindful about our voices, I think, which is why Danny came across a bit girly. I think as I kind of got confused between young and girly, and but it worked. It definitely worked, I think.
Yeah.
We read somewhere that Jason Donovan originally auditioned for your role. Is that true? And do you know why he did not get the role?
I had lunch with Jason. I had lunch with Jason 2 years ago when he was out here to do Chicago, and that's a crocker. That's an absolute crock.
Yeah, where'd you read that, kid?
I was offered, Danny. Look, I don't know. I only became aware of that. Of course, they would never tell you that because it's a bit of a hit. But many people audition for parts and then were offered other parts. But look, if it is true, great. I believe he knocked it back because he was doing year 12, and Terry, his father, Terry Donovan, who was in the show as well, he was very behind that, wanting Jason to do year 12, which was a great thing. And I think he really benefited from that. And they probably had their eyes on him. to come into the show by hook or by crook once he'd finished, which he did.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's why he knocked it back, and rightly so, I think.
Yeah. Now, you were known as a teenage heartthrob back in the 80s.
Well, yeah.
What was it like with the attention out in public? You would have got a lot of it.
I didn't really subscribe to it very well. Like, acting is actually quite boring. There's a lot of, standing around and waiting for the light, and the only time I really enjoyed acting was when the cameras were rolling, and the rest of it I found quite laborious. And the more popular we became, the more kind of known we were, and it'd be like you'd be in the milk bar, and I'll just have a packet of salt and vinegar chips, and they'd be like, mate, it's the Danny Ramsay. Oh, Maria, come. Look, Stella, look who we've got here. And I'd be like, yeah, could I just have a packet of salt and vinegar chips? Oh, what's going to happen with the girl? What's going to happen with that girl? The and this was constant, whether you got into a taxi or whether you went to the milk bar. So I really take my hat off to because I didn't cope with it that well, but I really take my hat off to Jason and Kylie and these people that have this constantly still today, because it's a lot to put up with, and how you keep your head and how you cope with that is not easy, I would suspect.
Did you get a lot of attention from girls at the time, or wanting to be your girlfriend? Should we not go there?
No, maybe, look, I mean, older girls, 22, 23. No, not really. Well, I don't think so. I didn't really. I think everyone was like quite idolised. But yeah, I'd make way for Peter O'Brien, who played Shane. I mean, he was the heartthrob, and I was kind of the cute brother, I think. I don't think I was really, Robert Redford. But yeah, the attention was everywhere.
Yeah.
But I think middle-aged mothers actually appreciated my character more than anyone. They were, oh, the poor thing, and oh, isn't he gorgeous? And and he was, I must say.
Sorry, Ken.
Tell fans what a typical week would be on Neighbours. The time you would start each day, the scenes you would shoot, your finish time, what you did when you were waiting around.
Another good question. I think from memory, Mondays was a rehearsal day. So coming out of the weekend was a little bit easy. We would rehearse and then we would shoot on the Wednesday. So I think Monday and Tuesday were rehearsal days from memory, and Tuesday we'd also be out on location, but don't quote me on that, even though I've just been quoted myself. And so in the studio, we'd always shoot a week behind. So location was a week ahead. So you kind of had to fall in and out of continuity, and being the three families originally, the Ramsays, the Robinsons, and Des and Daphne, there's only three sets in the Channel 7 studio and the Channel 10 studio when we got there. So they would do it in blocks. So generally the Ramsays will first cab off the rank. So we were early morning, which was right, and then they'd go to Des and Daphne sort of middle afternoon, and then finish off with the Robinsons and be late because we were late. So we had a lot of early mornings. Which was good because we were fresh, and so I can remember that well. As far as what we did outside of filming, the days were very long. I mean, as you'd know, Ken, they could start at 5 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning for makeup and wardrobe, and you'd still be going at 7 o'clock at night sometimes. So, and standing around and doing nothing, which is so much of it is quite tiring. Those cement floors are terrible, and we're getting paid. It was just awful. But Channel 7 was great because we were right amongst it there in South Melbourne, and we could go out for lunch or go to the pub in those days. Or whereas when we went to Channel 10, we were quite isolated because it was in Nunawading, which was like going to the country, back then. But Channel, really sort of felt the vibe, I guess. at Channel 7. So, yeah, there was always something to do. We could always nick off and come back, which we were good at. Yeah.
That was the same for you, wasn't it, Ken? Another Wadding, Channel 7.
Well, yeah, Channel 7 had the Casa de Mañana Hotel and the Rising Sun and so forth and so on. You could get down from Channel 7, you could get down to the pub in 8 minutes brisk walk.
How do you know the time so well?
Well, we did.
Experience.
You'd remember Phil Bowler, who was the
Yes, I do.
He was camera 2 on the original Neighbours, and he was out the door as soon as it was lunch. He was he was there, and everyone followed. They did that in those days. It was but it was a great family feel. Initially, it was really good, and we worked pretty hard, but we played hard as well.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I just want to read something on when Channel 7 decided to axe Neighbours after 170 episodes in 1986. Channel 10 bought the show and began screening it on the 20th of January. Now, what I read was when 10 picked up the cast off Brian Walsh, now executive director of television at Foxtel, but then 10's head of publicity at the time, realised changes were needed to be made if it was going to work. So they bumped Darius Perkins from the Scott Robinson role to make way for Jason Donovan. Guy Pearce joined as Mike Young. And 3 months after the move, Kylie Minogue was introduced as a feisty tomboy mechanic, Charlene Mitchell. 7 had destroyed the sets, but Walsh, who was determined to draw major attention to the new version of the show, managed to salvage some props, which found their way into a spectacular publicity stunt, which I actually remember. I hired 2 semi-trailers and I had the sets department build the Robinson house on the back of one of them and the Ramsay house on the other. And we drove around with the cast on the trucks waving and these big banners saying Neighbours is moving to a new home. Do you remember all that?
No. I remember Robbie Perkins, who's a very good set designer, who Darius Perkins' father. He designed the original sets and he designed the Channel 10 sets as well. And I know he had to tweak them just ever so slightly to avoid litigation. But it was pioneering stuff. I mean, we were all devastated when the show was axed, and because we really felt it deserved a good audience. And then, some weeks later to get the phone call, I mean, it was almost like it was surreal. I mean, it had never happened before. And as far as Darius and Jason went,
how did he feel?
The character of Scott. Well,
because you knew him quite well, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, we were great mates, and right to the end. But I thought he was going with us because when I got the script for the first script of Channel 10, it had Scott in it, and they referred to him, even though I think he first came on air about episode 4 or something of Channel 10, which was episode 174 or whatever it was. So when I spoke to Darius and said, well, we're back on, and he said, no, I'm not going. And I was kind of like, what? What do you mean? Scott's in the script. Of course you're going. And he said, no. He said, I don't know what they're doing, So I rang my agent and said, what's the story with Scott? And he was managing Jason at the time and Jason's father. And he said, no, they've replaced Darius with Jason Donovan. And I knew Jason from I Can Jump Puddles, but I was a bit concerned because not knowing how they were going to, I knew that Danny wasn't going to be at school anymore and he was going to be in the bank with Des. So I kind of was a bit concerned about how Scott and Danny would work because Jason's, I think, 3 years younger than me, and he was genuinely just out of school. And so right up until they kind of started writing them away completely, like it was, they weren't together at all as the unit that Darius and I were, which kind of, I understand why they did that because it wouldn't have worked the same way and we couldn't sort of refer back to how it was. But yeah, the whole thing was a bit bizarre. I mean, I was just a bit sort of, wow, okay, fair enough. And I did my stuff and they kind of coupled Jason with Kylie and Guy. And so Danny became a bit like an island. I mean, he had Max there and Shane and the stuff with Des. was pretty good stuff, like quite comical.
Yeah.
But he kind of lost his way a bit, and of course when Francis Bell left the series, it kind of left Danny with nowhere to go. So he ended up in Ramsay Junkyard in Queensland with all the other Ramsays.
Queensland.
Yeah, so
That should be the spin-off series.
yeah, that's right. Ramsay Junkyard, Queensland.
Yeah, just actually on speaking of the axing back then, and it's recently just been axed. What are your thoughts on that? I'm sure you've been asked 1,000 times.
No, not really.
No? Okay.
Thank you for asking. Look, I'm feeling philosophical. I'm sad, obviously, that it's a shame. I think it's a real shame. I mean, everything's got to end, I guess. What starts ends. But I hope that it can be revived. I think it's still got a lot of legs.
Definitely.
I think it's the production now, they've done pretty well with what they've got. But I think in saying that as well, they've got away from the core business of the show, which was three families, four families having fun, that ocarism, comedy, lighthearted stuff.
How do you think that would stand up now, though? I mean, I love the original Neighbours. Do you think it would still stand up?
It's probably been done to death, I think. It depends how you approach it. I think and they've certainly tried, I think, and but look, it's just a shame, I think. But I'm absolutely honoured to be part of it and to be an original cast member, because it's just achieved everything.
Yeah,
it's just been an amazing run. I mean, who would have thunk it?
Yeah.
I mean, crikey Moses, it just went on and on and on. And I look at the cast down the family tree, and I'm right up there, and I've got about 17,000 relatives. I mean, I don't know who's who in the zoo. I mean, I should be the walking stick going, oh, yeah, well, when I was young, the street was named after my great-grandfather, even though I'm adopted, twice removed, third party, but no one can take that away from us. Yeah. And look, it's had a really good, I hope they do rest it, and I hope that, I hope when they rest it, I hope it does
pick back up.
Rise again, because it's just such an institution, and it's so many people it's shaped so many people's lives. Definitely. And the Melbourne acting industry too, and crew industry, it's sad for them because there's really not a lot of production, and so many people cut their teeth on shows like that, and that's going to be sad too. So I think it's not great for anyone. And I hope that it has a third coming. We had a second coming, so we'll have a third one.
Definitely. Yeah.
Grandpa Ramsay go. Who knows?
Cast members of Neighbours at the time were travelling to the UK to do pantomimes. Did you ever travel to the UK for that or anything else?
No, I didn't. I as I explained before, wanted to do something different. So I basically went from Neighbours to handing out brochures in Elwood selling real estate. Which I do not regret in one iota. I had a long career in real estate, and so I'd kind of had enough of the the Danny Ramsay. Woo! I'd kind of had enough of that, and I just wanted to be normal, and I guess because my father's background, I wanted to be in business, and real estate kind of suited me well because it wasn't 9 to 5. As long as I brought in the listings and sold the properties, then. And I was very lucky initially because Stefan Dennis plays Paul. Obviously, many people know this. Of course they do. He's the only original character. He gave me his house to sell, which was just a bomb, and really gave me a leg up. And the lovely Anne Hattie as well gave me her house to sell. So you see, I literally went from being a national TV star to the local bloke doing letterbox drops in Elwood.
Did you get recognised a lot doing the real estate?
Yeah, I did a little bit, but I used it. I used it. And 100%. If it got me in the door, I used it. So I kind of honed my skills, but I was quite happy to do that and to earn a real dollar, my father's words kept echoing, like, they're imbeciles. Like, get a real job, get a real job. And not that real estate's a real job, but well, it is now.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
And so I got into that, and didn't look back.
Yeah. Now, before we set up, we were having a chat about Francis Bell, and you had some funny stories, which I'd hope you could say here, because I think he was a great actor. He played Max Ramsay. It was, he made the show at the start, I believe.
He did.
And you worked quite closely with him.
Yeah. Look, I think Neighbours has a lot to thank Francis for.
Yeah.
I think without Francis, it probably wouldn't have been as appealing to Channel 10 to pick it up. He really made the show, and the show was about him, and he was larger than life, as we know. And it was really challenging working with him, because he'd got to be in rehearsals, and he'd pick up the script and he'd go, oh, well, I'm not saying that. No, I'm not saying that. Well, I'm not saying that. Oh, God, he wouldn't say that. And the directors would say, well, what would he say? And he'd be like, oh, well, we'll just fly it, do it.
Yeah.
And the stuff he'd come out with was just hilarious. And he was such a good ad-libber, but he refused to say any of the words. And so most of the sort of first 6 months was pretty much ad-libbed.
Wow.
And it kind of threw all our lines out. I mean, he kept to the intention, but some of the words that came out, and between him and Dasha Glahova, who played my mother, who was Czechoslovakian, didn't speak a word of English. And then there's me, and then there's sort of Shane. It was just a comedy. I mean, talk about the dynamic family setup, which remarkably worked.
Yeah.
And the comedy came through, but Francis was just a hoot, beautiful man.
Yeah.
But just not.
Was he similar to his character? Because his character was that quintessential Aussie bloke, the blue singlet, the plumber, be down at the pub having a beer.
No.
He sort of resonated with.
No, he wasn't. He was a theatrical actor, a Shakespearean actor who
Wow.
worked with Bell Shakespeare, and so he'd be like, "Right, you blokes, right, cut." Was that okay?
Oh, really?
Wow. Really soft sort of English accent, and you'd be like, "What?" So he was completely different. Max was completely fabricated, and he based it on an uncle of his, who must have been a bit of a character, because he was just hilarious. I mean, some of the stuff he did was just, sometimes you'd do a double take at what he'd say, but they were the gold moments that we kept, or they kept, and they put this stuff to air, which was kind of unheard of in those days, because soapies were very, or series were very structured, and so one person speaks, the other person speaks, but he'd just walk over there and do that there, and blah, 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 what do you think? You'd want to start laughing, but you'd have to go with him, and some of it was just gold. I mean, he really, and the viewers loved it, and I think was the key to Neighbours. And because of him, we all started doing it. We all started doing sight gags and walking into walls and banging our heads on this, and the actors that could do that stuff, like Paul Keane and Vicky Blanche was very good at it. So we felt relaxed and able to think up funny stuff and improvise, which was kind of unheard of in 1985, and it really worked, and it became a lot more personal as a show, and I think you could really see the interactions between the families, but he was fantastic.
Do you know why he left the show?
He had a bad back. He was unwell. I mean, he was also fairly boisterous off the set, and he was. I think it just got to the stage where he couldn't go on, and I think Grundy's, to their credit, really tried, and he was just he was complaining, and everybody had their own challenges. But I think it sort of became about him, and I think it kind of backfired on him, and I think he definitely needed the break, because he was unwell, and a lot of people thought he was feigning it, and I thought at the time, well, how is the show going to go on? And I can remember John Holmes saying to both Darius and myself in his office one day, he said, "Ramsay Street's a very long street," and haven't they proved that? You know, I mean, I think he was probably the biggest and first character to go.
Yeah.
And there's been so many along the way. Yeah. But, you know, he came back for I think the 100 episode part, or whatever it was, 1,000 episodes. Yeah. So he wasn't completely admonished, but he was pretty close. Yeah. So, and it was very difficult for the actor coming in, Gary Files.
Which is actually Ken's question, actually.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Gary?
If that's all right, go ahead and answer the question.
Well, Gary's a great actor, but I'm not sure that he knew kind of the background of what had happened.
Because he played the brother of Max, right. Tom Ramsay.
And it happened so quickly, like virtually Francis was there in the morning, gone in the afternoon. It was that quick. And Gary started the next day. So they didn't have time to rewrite. And he took many of Max's lines. And I think the viewers were aware of that. But so it was really difficult, I think, for Gary coming into that family unit. Yeah. Because it was a pretty well-oiled machine. And it was difficult for me too. And I started to, you know, I really missed the performance of Max. Yeah. And Gary was great at what he did, but probably not as big as Max. Yeah. And they certainly didn't write Danny with him as a twosome as they did with Danny and Max. But yeah, I just felt a bit sorry for him because, you know, what an awful situation to be in.
Yeah, hard books to film.
And he was a great theatrical actor. And but it kind of, that's Neighbours, isn't it? It just keeps on keeping on. So, yeah.
Now, I read somewhere Stefan Dennis originally auditioned for Des. Is that right? Is that
I have no idea.
No idea?
Okay. I don't think he'd make a very good Des. Paul Keane really owned that character.
Yeah,
I mean,
he did.
He was cast very late, and I think he'd done a film with David Parker and his Tess, Malcolm. I think he had a small part in that, but he really owned that character and made it his own with his little quirks and fantastic. And they started to write for him, and he was really another reason that the show became big.
Definitely.
Yeah, great character. Yeah.
It was. Ken?
Prisoner was still being videotaped when Neighbours first started at Channel 10. What was it like with Prisoner still running at the time?
I can't remember having much to do with them. I know that the Lassiter set was the old Holiday Island set, and I used to hang out there a bit. And
Ken's got some great stories about Holiday
Island. And you know, but yeah, the girls in Prisoner, because I think the two studios there, they were very separate.
So they were both on different sides of the building. Studio A was where Neighbours was, and Studio B was where Prisoner was set.
Yeah, and I think they produced 2 hours. We were doing 2.5 hours. So, and we might cross them in the foyer when they're in their casual clothes, nothing all scary in their outfits. But yeah, I can't really. We didn't have a lot to do with them. Yeah. And we were the new kids on the block too. So you know, like anything, when you kind of move in and you know, muscle your way in, people are sort of like, oh yes, Neighbours. Oh right, yes, over there. So we had to kind of gain a bit of respect, I think, at Channel 10 too. Yeah. Are
you shocked at how popular? I mean, I'm not sure if you know it, but your character's still pretty popular to this day online. A lot of people still talking about Danny Ramsay and the golden era of Neighbours. Are you shocked how it's still popular? The early days?
No, I was brilliant.
Yeah, really
shocked. Nah, yeah, no, it kind of works, doesn't it? Yeah, still. I mean, it's a pity it's never been re-released, and I think that's because Channel 7 own the footage.
The very first,
and maybe one day they might replay it because it's a good watch. And but look, I think if you watch it, no, I'm not surprised, but I'm surprised that people still remember 37 years ago that I'm doing this interview and people want to even hear my stupid voice talking about, you know, how good I was. I mean, that's quite surprising, you know, but yeah, I guess there's something quite magical and quite special about the show that went for 37 years. So, definitely. You know,
What are your memories working with two absolute legends of the show, Anne Hattie who played Helen Daniels, and Vivian Gray, who played Nell Mangle.
Yeah, look, Anne was beautiful. She had a lot of time for the younger cast. You know, she would often console Darius and myself and young Kylie Flink here and Vicky Blanche, who was the original Julie. We were all sort of the young gang, and she always had time for us. You know, you could kind of go to her and say, if you had a problem, and say, look, what do you think? And she'd do more than she had to. She'd really go into bat for you, or she was just divine. Unfortunately, I didn't get to work with her that much because, Grandma Robinson and Danny was like, hi, Grandma, hello, Danny. And that was it, which was a bit unfortunate. But I used to love watching the Robinsons record because it was part of the story, and you had to, it was just how different they were to the riot squad across the road there, the Max gang. And but yeah, no, she was lovely and so well respected in the industry, and really kept the show together too. And Vivian Gray, well, obviously, again, I didn't have much to do with her in the Sullivans. Because I lived in the shop and she was over the road, but a lovely lady, just so humble and such a good actress and very quiet, but she'd come alive when they called action with the yoo-hoo, and she was, and she just did that to a bomb. I mean, she found that niche, and she worked it. Yeah, worked it, and was so good at it, and funny. She only had to give you a blank stare. You'd kind of go,
she's hilarious.
Yeah, she was, and she pretty much, I think, Mrs. Jessup onto Ramsay Street.
Yeah,
Nell Mangle was a lot more sort of, I don't know. She was more characterised, I guess. She was a very quiet lady, and.
I read actually a rare interview with her a long time ago, and she really struggled with the role in the sense that she copped so much grief from fans outside of Neighbours. They were just giving her hell, and that was one of the reasons she left Australia and moved over to the UK.
I heard that. That's very, very sad. I mean, when people can't differentiate between the actor and the character, and they're hurling abuse at you, and I mean that's just not on. And there's just no excuse for that. And I believe that, she had a very tough time. I was really sad to hear that.
They've still got the original painting on the set. You remember the painting? It's great.
And Mark Little, I worked with him in the Sullivans. He's a character. So they had some good comedic actors after us, which was good.
They did.
They kept that, which was important, I think.
Now we've covered my next question. Ken, we'll move on to yours.
Have you ever been asked, and you'd better be quick, to come back as Danny Ramsay?
Only once, 2005, and he was a pool builder, and not since then, no.
Yeah. What was it like going back?
Oh, it was weird. They gave me this massive monologue, and Danny was a pool builder, and he was like, he was almost like a caricature of Max, which wasn't really where he was at. Like, he was more into his own thing and business and computers and being a bit gawky and geeky and funny and a bit weird. And so I'm not quite sure they researched it really strongly enough. But I was literally on for 20 seconds. They had a lot of cast members coming back, and I kept forgetting my lines because this damn monologue, it was like a whole page. It was like, and I was a bit older then, so I wasn't getting that photographic memory happening at all. I was like, what? And they, and I kind of struggled with falling into the character because they wrote him like Max. Fair enough. I couldn't see Danny, being a pool builder. I mean, he might hand you the spanner, but he certainly wouldn't have used it.
Should have been running a bank or something.
Yeah, he should have, exactly. He was more like Wolf of Wall Street or something like that. But but it was a great, I mean, it was really nice to be asked back, obviously. Because I, again, thought no one really cared, and I don't think they do, quite frankly.
Oh, no, they do. Yeah. They
do.
Did you have a favourite storyline?
Yeah, I guess anything with Francis was great fun. I really, when you were working with him, it was great. I guess getting out of the studio with the stuff with Gwen Plum, where we went to the country and she played Mrs. Forbes and Danny and Scott had run away. That really brought Danny and Scott into their own, and we had a lot of fun. And working with Gwen was again another dream. You know, I've been so lucky with the actors that I've worked with, and yeah, I really enjoyed that. Danny and Scott running away. I thought that was good stuff. And we got out of the studio and away from South Melbourne, away from Billy Bell's around the corner. And yeah, it was good. Yeah. And towards the end, I think the stuff with Des was quite had a lot of potential. You know, this sort of bumbling buffoon, young Danny, and Des sort of like, Danny just, you know, whatever. Like, you know, yes, there was a lot of there was some good stuff there that could have gone further, but you know, they went in a different direction. So.
Speaking of going further, what I liked about was that the Robinson family, which were like the white collar, you know, rich family, than the Ramsays, which was the blue collar. Would you have liked to have seen more sort of showdowns between the two families? You know, Paul was always trying to take everything over.
Yeah. I mean, there certainly was in the beginning. I mean, you know, Max sort of shutting down the Bucks party, and you know, but I think the way Alan Dale played Jim was very you know, smooth things over, and I think, I mean, God, the Ramsays were boisterous enough. I mean, but yeah, look at, I mean, they kind of did keep that rivalry going, but then it kind of lost its way, I think, because that's what originally it was about. It was about the fact that Max owned the street 100%. And it was his street, and you did what you were told. And everyone else was just renting. And, you know, they
Max the plumber owning the street, the Robinsons at the hotel.
I mean, look, the first episode at Channel 10, you know, I think you see Clive's truck going into next to the Ramsays there, and there's Danny and Max, you know, going, and Max is like, who's this imbecile? You know. And so it was kind of like everyone else was just squatting, and he owned the joint. So it made for a lot of fun storylines.
Now we know why you left Neighbours, to get a real job. That was my next question.
That's right, get a real job.
Get a real job.
No, look, I probably, like, to be honest, you know, I'd run my race, and I was a little bit bitter and about Francis leaving, and I felt that the show was it was a lot more polished at Channel 10. I think Channel 7 was a lot more, they shot it on a different grain, and I think the Channel 10, the way they shot it was very bold, and the wardrobe was a lot more bold, and I just I liked the way it was, and they changed everything, and I didn't cope with that very well. So I became a bit bitter, and it was probably time I'd moved on anyway. And that's the honest. And they left me with nowhere to go. You know, unless I was going to couple up with Des, or so I was just a bit older than Scott and Mike and that gang, and so I had no one to play with. So I was exit stage left. So that was okay. I mean, at least they didn't kill him.
Now, we covered the next couple of questions, which is fine, but do you still get recognised as Danny Ramsay?
No, never. I'm surprised, because I'm exactly the same. No, never.
Dickhead of hair.
Yeah, maybe. No. But I'm happy to sign an autograph for you.
Which we will talk about shortly.
Do you keep in contact with anyone from the show?
I speak to Stefan on and off. I have some friends that work behind the scenes still, and I caught up with Vicky Blanche just recently. Maxine Kliban-Gaitis, who was a prisoner.
Yes, who's
the great Bobby.
Yes,
he's great. No,
Bobby Mitchell. Yes,
Bobby Mitchell. Yep, who played Stefan's Paul Robinson's first wife. I see a bit of her. But I haven't seen Paul Keane or Elaine Smith or Alan Dale I speak to occasionally. But Kylie Flinkier I've come across about 15 years ago. She came up to me in a pub, and I was sort of there with my mates. So
Kylie, who played the first Lucy.
Lucy Robinson, and she was always such a small little thing. She'd got to follow us around. She was really annoying. It was like, I'm coming with you. And we're like, no, you're not. This is Doros and I pushing her away and going, piss off. We were actually quite cruel to her, I think. Well, not cruel, but we just didn't want to know. It was like, go away, little girl. And she was a gorgeous little girl, but we were just absorbed in their own crap. But this woman came up to me in this pub and she said, do you know who I am? And I said, no. She had dreadlocks and very attractive.
Oh, really? Wow.
I think she might have been about 30 at the time, maybe a bit younger, 20, 27, 28. And I had no idea who she was. And she said, I'm Kylie. And I said, Kylie who? And she said, Kylie Flinkier. And I was like, wow. Boy, had she grown up. And look, we had a great night. We played pool and reminisced and laughed and
wow.
It was a really good night, but I haven't seen her since. It's obviously made an impression there. But so it was great to run into her. But I think she kind of went a different way too, and she's not that interested in doing stuff, which is fair enough. But I was quite shocked. But I think in any TV series or theatre or film, you spend such a short time with people, and you share such a unique experience. But then you tend to go your own different ways. But when you see each other, you still have that bond.
Pick up like yesterday.
Because you experience something so unique. So I think, like with Stefan and I'm sure if I saw the other original cast members, we'd still have that bond because we went through a lot and good, bad, indifferent. But that tends to be the trend with any series.
Now, I was thinking about this last night before we wrap up. They're going to end Neighbours. Obviously, it's going to be, they can't kill everyone off because there could be a potential it gets picked up again. But what would you think would be the perfect ending? I mean, I don't know if you've watched it recently or...
I don't know. It's a good one. It's a very good one. I think maybe, hang on, we could brainstorm this.
Danny could come back and just blow the whole street up.
Well, he could. But I think what could happen, talking about Danny, but I don't. I mean, God, where do you end a show like Neighbours, really? I mean, you can't sort of tie it up and put it in the closet. But I think Danny sitting on a park bench and just maybe a flashback to the first scene and then just kind of looking up into the stars, and
the whole thing was a dream.
The whole thing was a nightmare. 37
years of a nightmare. Okay.
And it was never profitable. It didn't exist. People never got the sack. It was a bit like Pleasantville. So it was kind of
you said the first word on the show, so you could end with you saying the last.
I don't think that'll happen, but I'm sure they'll leave it open-ended. I mean, they're very clever at that, and I'm sure it'll be massively watched. But I think they'll try and bring some old characters back that were popular, like Jason and Kylie, and if they're kind enough to do it, it could be a cliffhanger along those lines or something like that. And I'm looking forward to it.
Now, Ken, we've got a special treat for the fans. We're going to. David and I were talking.
I'm going to take my top off. No.
Wow. Hey.
Well, actually.
We've got a piece of history we're going to show the fans now. And we've also got an idea. We're going to actually turn it into some memorabilia at some stage. I'm going to work behind the scenes with David on that. So you've got, can we show the fans?
Yeah, look, I was very lucky when I left the show in 1986 that I was given this as a going away present, which is the first script of Neighbours, and it's been beautifully bound, and I've kept it, I've cherished it, and it's really something very special. And you can see there, I think you're on that, Ken, because we need to go to an ECU here, mate. We need to get right in there and just that's the boy. Yep, perfect. Have you got my eyes in there as well? Yep, beautiful. So. It's the first script, and we only there you can see the original characters, but there's only two that we know of in existence. I know Stefan Dennis has one, and I don't think I would have had one unless they'd given it to me as a going away present. But
and now you mentioned back in the 90s, you had an offer of, it was like $20,000.
yeah, some drunk fool just lost his mind for a moment. I think he'd just been let out of Larundel, and he also and won Tats Lotto, so he decided to offer me that amount of money. But look, I think it's certainly a great keepsake, and very interesting too, because when you watch the first episode and you read the first episode, there's a lot of differences.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well,
wow.
Max Ramsay, I mean, there's not a word that he says in there, but the way they wrote it and the way and what we did with the script, and that's production-wise as well, as you know, Ken, was very different. And so it's a good thing to keep. And
so what we're going to do, we're going to print some of these up, and we're going to have David sign some, we'll frame some, and then we will sell some.
Yes, to go into the print.
Not for 20,000 a pop.
No, 40,000.
Yeah, 40.
40,000. That's
they're framed now, so it's not just.
But
but a piece of history, honestly. I mean, that's scripts, original scripts, and signed scripts in particular are very hard to get from Neighbours. The early days of Neighbours.
Yeah, look, I love this. It's something that I'll probably, never give up.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly happy to share copies of it. Which people will love the read, and also comparing to how it actually came out, because it's completely different.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to doing that. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up, Ken?
No, I don't think so. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for remembering me, and I've really enjoyed it. And can we just talk about me though, maybe next time?
Yeah. What would I talk? We can do that now.
It's not enough about me.
Hang on,
what are you doing?
Hang on a second. I was in the other studio.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, no, you're a good bloke.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Everyone's a good bloke. But thank you so much.
Actually, what are you up to these days?
Oh, look,
still voiceover work.
Have you got a minute? It all started. Look, we'll be here for I'm doing. I'm involved in a couple of businesses, and I do. I've got my own gardening show. I not television show. I do gardening. I have a diploma in horticulture, which I did when I first got up. I was a busy boy back then.
Yeah.
I do that just to get outside, and I enjoy that. Keeps me fit, and so I'm doing bits and pieces, and sort of semi-retired, but not completely retired. So keep pretty busy.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. I'm so glad we had you on, and the fans are going to love it, especially the Neighbours fans. That was episode 2 of Talking Prisoner Presents. Thank you for watching. If you could please subscribe and like our YouTube channel, and also share this interview everywhere you can, and also like all the social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the whole lot. And this episode will also be available on all the podcast platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple, Amazon, and 100 others that we have, and the talkingprisoner.com website. Thanks so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.